All right, good afternoon to you. I'm Fox 26 meteorologist John Dawson. This is our tropical update. We are tracking the tropics, and we have what I might even call breaking news in the tropical world. The National Hurricane Center has decided that this area that we've been watching out in the Atlantic for quite a while now is now enough organized that it is officially a tropical cyclone, and they've given it a number because it's a tropical depression 2. So this area is now Tropical Depression 2. It's still a ways out in the Atlantic, and there's a lot of other things still happening that we're going to be discussing, but we're glad you're taking a moment here to check in on the tropics. We're here every day a little bit after 4 o'clock or around 4 o'clock Central Time to bring you the latest on what's happening, and we'll continue to do that. And again, this is Friday afternoon, headed into the weekend, when we're getting this new update from the National Hurricane Center that Tropical Depression 2 has formed. And I would think within the next 24 hours, this depression will turn into a tropical storm, which then would be, again, classified as a tropical storm, and then it would get the name Beryl. So we're going to talk about that as well. But let's sort of watch this as we're unfolding here. Again, you can see how the progression goes. And eventually, we're even looking at the possibility that this would turn into a hurricane and maybe even a Category 2 hurricane as it continues to move on through. This is Tuesday when we're looking at it here more into the Caribbean. So this is, again, a ways away, and then perhaps even weakening as it gets a little bit further on down the line. So Tropical Depression 2 just now being recognized by the National Hurricane Center here at the 4 o'clock update on Friday afternoon, and this continuing to become, expected to become a tropical storm and then a hurricane as it continues to work its way on through into the Caribbean. And then again, we'll continue to monitor things. Right now, the movement is around 21 miles an hour as far as that westerly movement. So that's a little bit of a clip. It's moving along pretty quick, and the wind speeds are classified at that minimum 35 miles an hour. The next track is going to be available at 10 p.m. And as I mentioned, we're continuing to watch this system as we move it on through. This is going to be Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday is kind of what we're looking at. This is going to be something that we're talking about for a while. It's going to continue to move on through into the Atlantic. So kind of resetting a little bit, we still have several other areas. This Invest number 2 is, again, just happening from the Hurricane Center. This is where is now Tropical Depression 2. So we're not really watching that one. We've got, this is our area number 1 of disturbed areas that we're watching. That's actually over and kind of more or less, it's not even into the Yucatan, but this is where we would expect the development. The red shading here is where we're currently seeing Tropical Depression number 2 now, which was at 100% chance of development. And that Invest Area 3 also has a 30% chance, and it's got quite a bit of an area. And remember, these shaded areas is where it would possibly turn into that cyclone like a depression, which is exactly what we saw here with this area of Invest. It was 95L. So if you're keeping track at home, what was Invest 95L is now Tropical Depression 2. What is still currently Invest 94L is what we're looking at here. And this is an area where the weather is currently located over on the eastern side of the Yucatan Peninsula, but that track is expected to take it across the peninsula, and then again possibly within the next 7 days. So our computer modeling on Depression 2 pretty much, you know, at this point going to line up really close to what the Hurricane Center has. Notice how tight most of these, you've got a few that are outliers a little bit, but most of these are keeping pretty tight as it moves this system all the way into the Caribbean. So pretty high confidence in what we're going to see out of 2. And the exclusive Fox model is going to show you that as well. Here's where we see the depression, and it's not all that well organized right now, but as it moves through the next couple of days, we'll definitely begin to see that organization take place and start to move, and you'll see a little bit more strength in that system as it marches on through, and eventually ending up here, as I talked about on Tuesday and Wednesday, is when it gets into the Caribbean and has that potential at least to even be a hurricane at that time. So checking back again, kind of set up, we've got a wave that's here. This is the one that has that 30% chance. There's another wave here that's really continuing to fall apart as it tries to follow in behind 2. I think that will even become in less favored conditions. So this is that next area that would possibly have a 30% chance of developing. Here's Tropical Depression 2 continuing to move as we've been talking about towards the Caribbean. And our visible satellite, I'm running out of time for our visible satellite because the sun's beginning to set there, but I always like to try to get a quick little glimpse there of those little swirls, and you can see how things are really kind of bubbling up right before we begin to lose the light for that. Our infrared is able to kind of show again how this is really popping up. You see those magenta colors there really showing those strong storms bubbling up and really forming as those systems continue to progress. And then we're back here to that disturbance number 1 that we talked about. Again, only a 30% chance. This mess of storms has to get across the Yucatan Peninsula, and then it still has to find more favorable conditions here to form into a tropical system. So it's a bit of a stretch at this point to think that will happen, but certainly a possibility. And some of our computer modeling, again, will sort of take all this, moving it forward and trying, you'll see a little bit of that swirl trying to get active. For those of us here in the Houston area, you'll notice that all of this mess stays down pretty far south in the Gulf of Mexico and the Bay of Campeche, not really even going to be able to have a whole lot of influence on what's happening across the state of Texas or any of the other Gulf Coast states. And as that system continues to progress, we watch here is what at this point we'll think it will be Beryl. It will be that what is currently Tropical Depression 2. We're back to Wednesday again with that extended forecast, kind of taking a look at where we're seeing it in the next 5 days or so. Now, something that is going to be impacting the Texas folks for sure, and then either other portions of the Gulf Coast, is the Saharan dust. And we're going to continue to see that's pretty strong right now in the Caribbean, and it continues to move into the Gulf of Mexico. And then eventually, when we get into Sunday, we'll begin to get those impacts here in Houston. Hazy conditions, but it kind of peaks more or less on Monday, and then it carries into Tuesday as well. So here's that dust as it moves on through. Again, peaking on Monday, going down into the Corpus Christi area as well. You're certainly going to be able to recognize that when you take a minute and kind of look across the skies when we get into Monday and Tuesday here in the Houston area. But that also sort of never helps the development of any sort of a tropical system. So that's another one of those reasons why we think that we just won't see a whole lot of activity along anywhere in the U.S. coast along the Gulf of Mexico because of that dust that kind of preventing a little bit of that. So a reminder on how it works. You get an area of invest, then you get a tropical depression, which is given a number, which is 2, and then that next upgrade becomes a tropical storm when it gets a name. And this is what we've been talking about with Beryl is going to be that next named system. And then we'll see how these other systems begin to develop. But we do really think that it's not going to take too long to get to that next named storm. All right, glad you could take a minute and catch up with us on our tropical forecast. As I mentioned earlier, we're here every day, not just on the weekdays, but even on the weekends as well, whether it's a quiet update or an active update, or like today where I sort of had fun and called it breaking news. We'll definitely be able to bring you whatever's happening from our own discussions as well as what the National Hurricane Center is officially releasing, and we'll continue to do that. Glad you could check in with us, and we'll make sure and check with us again on Saturday around 4 p.m.